I don't necessarily
Head out there
want to
early
tell them.
September.
they
Spend
want
a few
that.
minutes.
I was just
But it might help
curious.
you in your search.
Before we begin the meeting,
Yes.
I want to let people know if anyone wants to make public comment, they must give a first and last name and city or jurisdiction of residence on the sheet.
Oh.
I call the regular Library Board of Trustees meeting for March to order. There is no one signed up for public comment, so we will move forward to the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
I so move to accept the consent calendar.
And I
agree. I'm a second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Then all those in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed?
They
Thank you.
was approving. She
Yes,
was just
yes,
a
I
slow, a
heard.
delayed system, I think.
So the consent calendar is approved. Now we're moving on to our reports, and we will begin with Michael's director report.
Right, so first thing is that some of you might have used it in the past, but Freegal is our music streaming downloading system that the library shares with the Cooperative Information Network. We've had it for a number of years now. It did peak several years ago, so around 2016, 2017. That was its peak usage. It then went into a steep decline. And then in 2019-20, it bounced back in a big way. So we were thinking, okay, that's good news. But in recent years, it has seen that decline again. And now there's just so many options to people, Spotify, Amazon Music, that are relatively affordable. I think interests have shifted towards those. So usage doesn't really justify the cost. And CIN has decided to not renew the subscription. And instead, we're going to channel the funds that we use for that into Overdrive or Libby, simply because that's where the demand is. We struggle to keep up. And as you know, ebooks, the audiobooks for libraries are very expensive items. So it's a good way for us to supplement what we already spend on Overdrive. And then we've got, now that the weather's warming up, we've got a lot of our more annual events are occurring. So the first one to mention, the writers competition is underway, at least for another week or so. We're accepting entries through March. And then we've got a volunteer panel that will judge them. So they're broken into age category and then non-fiction, fiction. So we'll have the judges pull out the winners, and then we'll award those winners. It's the foundation, or it's the Friends these days, right?
Yes.
That help sponsor that with the prizes. We've got Shred Day coming up. So people can bring their documents, unwanted documents, and get them shredded by a shred truck from Debris Business Services. So that's going to be April 1st from 9 to 12. It's a limit of 2 boxes. We're just putting that out there just in case we get overwhelmed. So yeah, please spread that if you've got anybody who could benefit from that.
You know that it's a guarantee that it will pour rain that day.
It has in the past,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I just,
It's the
be prepared.
tradition. We're hoping
Yeah, it is.
maybe this year it'll be different. Little luck. And then the last one to mention is, well, I've got another thing after this, but Earth Day celebration is going to be April 22nd. So that's Saturday. It's the actual Earth Day from 10 to 2. I'm going to have, we're going to be using the community room, and then outside of the community room a setup similar to what we had last year. So we'll have a whole bunch of different environmental outdoors focused organizations. They're going to put on activities. We'll each have a booth where they can share information with the public. We're going to have some school performances on the day just to draw in some more family interest. So some examples are the University of Idaho Extension, Panhandle Health, Kootenai Environmental Alliance, the Audubon Society, and the Friends of Tufts Hill. And we have quite a few others lined up to present as well. And then just the last thing to share, we had a resignation, Bernadette, who just very recently is, her focus has been on adults programming, and it's done some really great stuff, like got some good programs up and running, really different programs for different age groups, different demographics, lots of interest. Unfortunately, she decided to move on, but I feel like she's created a template that we can really carry on with moving forward. So really grateful to her and all the work that she's done.
And is she going further in library work?
She wants to focus on her family.
Oh, okay. I just always want to know if they're being stolen away by another library, because
No,
we
just-
had,
just
we
her
had that
children.
in the past sometimes. And I
Yes.
want to know
We
what's
did
going
steal her
on.
from Ralph in the first place.
Oh,
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Well, we have
Uh-oh.
been known to do that, and we stole one from Hayden too, so yeah, we have a reputation that's not so savory also.
Well, in talking about programming, the numbers changes, and I know there's a lot of reasons, maybe COVID was one of them getting back last year, but the percentage increases look. wonderful.
Yeah, it's going really well. It was a really busy winter session for programming, so we're excited now that it's summery and school will be out soon. Should be looking at some good numbers. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
On to the, we don't have our city council liaison, so Friends of the Library.
Okay, the Friends of the Library, they're on a slightly different schedule at the moment. They meet next week. Last meeting, we talked about Shred Day. They are the sponsors of Shred Day, so just getting that organized. And then also we had an author talk one Saturday, Stephen Tells. He was talking about the Santiago El Camino, the treks that he's done on it. And the Friends did cater for that event, which was, they got a good turnout, about 52 people. He got a bit of attention in the CDA press, that helps. But yeah, we were pleased with that. And thankfully the Friends showed up and did their thing, refreshments for the event.
Thank you. And now any questions on the Friends of the Library? Time for the foundation report. Oh,
I wrote a grant for the Idaho Humanities Council and got $1,500 for Spanish speaking ebooks, regular books, audiobooks, I believe. And the foundation matches that amount. So we've got $2,000 that we're spending for that, which is great. Yeah, you're spending for that. Your just a reminder about Mark Cameron coming April 26th, an author that has written Jack Ryan books and is in Alaska, native or lives in Alaska now. We're hoping that event will fill up this room. And did you do your final books
We
today?
did our final Mudgy and Millie presentation today.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. And did you get a picture taken with the little second grader?
There were pictures being taken, and Betty from the foundation was there because she's going to write an article.
Right.
And she visited with the principal, who said, oh, I have all the books and I have people all over the country I sell them
Oh,
to.
good.
And so, you know,
Excellent.
good publicity, I think.
Right. Susan mentioned in our meeting last week that she felt we need a little more exposure to what we do in the school district, giving these books away.
Yeah.
In kindergarten through second grade. So we plan on a photo of Susan giving a second grader, I think, one of Sarah McVeigh's friends, one of the books, and then Betty Hammond is writing the story for him.
And have we had an article in the paper about the backpacks for the brand new babies at the hospital?
There was
There
a
was,
big article or a picture when
Uh-huh.
we first started it, which I'm glad you brought that up because I brought my little bags. Because
Oh,
I
that's
couldn't
nice to
remember
see.
if I told this group about it.
Yeah, I can't remember. I've seen it at
Because
the
it's a-
foundation meeting.
Yeah, it's a born reading program that we put together, a letter welcoming it to newborn parents. We give them a letter of introduction on what our library does, a library application, library card application, some information about how to be a good parent and doing different things for parenting your kids, and then we give them a hardback notebook and a bunch of other good things, baby sleep words every day, and a whole list of a ton of different books as they age. And there's 170 births every month. So that keeps the outreach, Shar and the volunteers for these, filling these things up and then delivering it to a hospital. And the parents just love it. We got such great remarks about how grateful they are that we're around. And they're hoping that beginning process of, so I didn't know if the board knew about that or not. My board obviously does.
So how long ago do you think it was in the paper?
Oh, it was the winter time and it was COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I
Probably
guess what
18
I'm
months.
saying is, at the 2-year anniversary of it or something, maybe get another piece of publicity, because that's a really wonderful thing that the foundation does. And it supports the library too. And
sure.
I just think it's good, just this thing that Susan was talking about, getting information out there
Yeah.
about what we do.
We'll let that story get out there first, and then maybe in a couple of months.
Yes.
Remind them
Yes.
of what we're doing. Thank you. I appreciate that input. That's all I have. Thank you. Oh, we need to talk about the sculptures and the cabin.
Let's wait for next time.
Okay.
Things are happening regarding the children's library,
Good.
but it's slow progress, but
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
getting it.
It's not happening as fast. as-
Yeah, wait
I
for
like-
gangbusters.
We have all this money.
Uh-huh.
Spend it, I'll do it right, however.
Seeing no questions for Holly, we'll move on to our unfinished business. We have an action item on the communications policy, so I will entertain a motion to approve that policy.
So move.
Second. And discussion.
It's very similar to how you last saw it, except the changes that you requested last meeting. So just also, I took Randy Adams, city attorney's advice on board. He made some changes to the language here and there, not really changing the intent. So what were you asking for? So you wanted the line clarified. So it's in part B, staff and trustee conduct. And then it's talking about staff shall avoid speaking to the public while being photographed, filmed, recorded, and refer patrons who are photographing, filming, recording to the library director or a supervisor. I think it was a little unclear exactly how we were framing that last time, so hopefully that's clearer. And then Steve's suggestion down under part G, release. So we were saying that we were going to, for publicity purposes, film, record, or take photos at events, library events, and that if patrons didn't want to be included in those, they should notify library staff. Steve suggested we reverse that. We will, first of all, state our intent that we are doing that, and then ask, so yeah, any attendee who expresses an objection will not be photographed, filmed, or recorded. So being a little more proactive on that part.
Michael, I have Whoops, I'm trying to go as if I could move it. Could we go up to those sentences in B that were revised? Because I like the revision. Thank you very much for that. But I have a question about it. And perhaps we probably discussed this at the time and it's just slipped my mind, but why is it recommended to not speak while being photographed? That staff not speak to patrons while they're being photographed.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess what we're doing with this policy and the next one, you've seen, we're kind of lumping all of these recording elements together. I mean, I could take that out if you like, but.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to it. I'm just trying to understand it. Did you envision this as staff having a conversation with, say, a one-on-one conversation and someone's photographing it? Or would this in addition also refer to staff addressing a group at a public meeting? Are meetings to stop when someone is photographing if they haven't had permission?
Hadn't really thought about that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I know that one of the things that we talked about like 2 or 3 years ago was that we wouldn't expect staff to make a statement to the public. It would be referred to the director or the chairman of the board of trustees. And they would be the funnel through which published communication would occur.
Yeah.
And I think that's the
That's the
filter of the intent, whether it's properly reflected. I think there's a good point, though, that you bring up. They're doing a presentation and someone is filming it and they want to have a dialogue. I guess what they could say is, we could talk about that after the presentation and then ask them to turn off their recording device. And what the filming it today would be not a silent filming. It would be with an audio feed, because there's very little filming that's done today without the recorder on for audio. So then they become the source of the library, and that's not their job. And it kind of puts them under a spotlight that maybe isn't appropriate for them to be under. But one-on-one, talking to a patron and explaining something, but not on record for publication, is a different thing.
If I think about the actual intent of this, and Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, it's if a person was recording within the library space.
Yes.
Right.
So they came up to the front desk and they had a camera on the staff member and were asking questions. We'd want to avoid that kind of interaction.
Right.
Whereas if they were at another location so that comes down to part D, community relations, and they were making a presentation that was recorded, I guess we'd kind of expect that could happen.
Okay.
But does it need to be clarified further?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks a little bit vague because it says avoid speaking to the public. But at the same time, and I know we haven't adopted it yet, but the photography policy will not allow capturing identifiable likenesses without the express permission of the patron. So, I mean, I think staff should be able to tell a patron, you don't have to give consent to being filmed while you're in the library. I'm not sure if this sentence in question prohibits that or not, but because I understand what Katie's saying, that it's to avoid the staff making a comment that should be done by the library director. I just wanted to be clear that number one, patrons in the library have to give consent to be filmed. And the other issue may be that there should be an exception carved out for the library board meetings. I mean, I don't think there should be, that's more of a public forum, and I think anybody can film
That'd be-
whatever goes on at the library board.
Well, I read it.
Well, that would be in the next policy, I imagine. Wouldn't that cover it?
You mean in the
Photographing. and
photography?
film.
Yeah.
Maybe I just missed that, but.
So going back to this line, trying to clarify it. Would it clarify it by saying staff shall avoid speaking to the public in the library space while being photographed, filmed, recorded? Would that clarify it a little bit?
I don't think library space is the problem with
No,
it.
I think that it should say, I'm not sure about wording here, but staff should refer public comment to the director or a supervisor, as it says, or a supervisor, if the director's unavailable, while being photographed and recorded.
But
I think that that's important, that it doesn't have to be avoid speaking, because that sounds like you avoid speaking to the public, and that's sure not what we mean. We're saying that the staff should refer to the director comments while being photographed or filmed, recorded, etc. You know, the emphasis is a positive emphasis.
I thought,
Avoid speaking as a negative statement. I don't think we want to phrase it like that.
Or do we
We
want to
don't
say,
want to avoid speaking to the public.
should we say avoid speaking to the photographer?
No,
Isn't
I
that
don't
the
think,
intent?
I don't think that's it. The staff should refer comments to the director or their
Questions.
representative while being photographed and recorded. Da, da, da. And that, what do you think, Faye?
well, I thought comments was in another section of it, but I'm just working from, yeah, I didn't see this as being relevant to comments back here. Yeah, bleh.
But the staff has to have protection, that they're following policy to refer you to the director. And so this is about what their conduct is supposed to be. Oh, phew, I don't have to make a public statement. I'm protected under our policy about staff conduct or trustee conduct. We have the same policy that only the chair of the board of trustees makes public comment. Everybody else, if they say something, it says a citizen or whatever, it doesn't represent the board. So, what do you think here?
I'm gonna ask Randy Adams.
Well, I think before you can ask Randy, though, we have to tell him what we want. I mean, what are we worried about here? Staff
Well, he's right.
having a
here.
personal conversation with a patron about books, maybe, for instance, and not wanting that patron's privacy to be violated by someone, and so they would stop speaking?
I don't think that's it at all. We're protecting the staff right now. And we're saying, we don't want something that they would say on camera or in recording of some sort to be now showing up in some big publication, and that wasn't of the voice representative of the library. It was their own voice on the spot and under the spotlight, and now they're speaking on behalf of the library, but that's not their job.
Right. But I think that is a current issue in any public body. We call them First Amendment auditors, who come in and record people and attempt to elicit a reaction.
Right.
And we're trying to protect our employees from reacting in a way that, like you say, gets posted on the internet or something of that nature. And maybe, as Steve may have mentioned, that this might be overly broad. Do we want to prohibit discussing with library page or the public about policies of the library, refer policy questions to the director, as opposed to, where's the restroom, or where's the
Yeah.
children's section? That's not a big deal. But so you might want to narrow it to avoid speaking to the public about policy issues or about things that properly are delegated to the library director. And then I would also probably add without the permission of the library director. So the library director should have the option of allowing an employee to make those comments.
That makes
And
so
not
much
to
more
have
sense.
room, because they could do a quick message to the director and say, can I address this? In some cases, it would be an obvious yes.
So does someone wish to make a motion to amend what
Yeah,
has
but
been
I
presented
don't know
to
the
us?
right way to word it. though.
Yeah, I can try it here.
Okay,
Okay,
So the sentence that begins under paragraph B, the sentence that begins with staff shall avoid.
Mhm.
So it could say staff shall avoid speaking about policy issues without permission of the library director.
speaking about.
Well,
Regarding policy.
Our policy is the only thing that they should be. I mean, if we have agenda items and they want us to talk about, want a staff member to talk about something that was happened at the last meeting or something like that,
Right.
that's another.
but aren't staff having to explain policy to people all the time? And that's okay, isn't the issue just the photographing here?
Yeah.
I think it's the photograph.
And recording.
Right, yeah.
You could just leave the explanation out and just say, avoid speaking to the public without direction of the library director.
That's.
You can do it on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I don't understand what we mean by speaking to the public, because our staff has to speak to the public, has to talk to patrons all the time.
Staff shall avoid speaking
Well,
to the, what, not even about policy, to the public while being, speaking without the direction or permission, without
So just
permission.
staff shall avoid speaking to the public while being photographed, filmed, or recorded without
Permission of
Yes.
the director.
there it is.
permission of the director,
Okay,
and also continue with refer the patient.
I
Okay.
think the whole question is filming.
so is there a motion to amend it as Randy just stated?
I so move.
So I've got staff shall
Okay,
avoid
and-
speaking to the public while being filmed without permission of the library director or the library director. Some of
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
I second it.
that's the motion. Okay.
I have one other tiny little
You
thing.
better vote on this one
Yes,
first.
just a
Faye.
moment.
Oh,
Faye.
one at a time? Okay, I thought we'd do them all together. All right.
All in favor of amending it to read, staff shall avoid speaking to the public while being photographed, filmed, and recorded without permission of the director, and refer patrons who are photographing, filming, recording to the library director, and et cetera, as it is written. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion has been amended.
Okay, now, Faye.
I just have a scribes thing here. On the fourth line, the word vulgarity needs a comma after it.
The fourth line?
Yeah, part B.
Oh, right, yes, sorry.
Otherwise, it's vulgarity racist.
Vulgarity religious? Oh, vulgarity racist, oh dear.
Just should be vulgar, right? Not
So,
vulgarity.
no, because it's, these are all,
Okay.
oh,
Yeah.
vulgar, yes, it's an adjective,
Okay, so change that to vulgar, put a comma.
comma.
Oh, that should be, you're right. Vulgar. Yeah, good.
And I believe grammatical changes like that do not require an amendment. Okay, thank you.
Unless it changes the meaning.
Mhm.
Right.
We have a motion.
Did you do have a motion? It appears discussion, we've exhausted our discussion. So
Call for
all
the
of those-
question.
Yes, all of those all those in favor of approving the new communications policy as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The communications policy is adopted. Moving forward to new business.
No, we have to do photography. Well, yeah, that
It's
is
under
new
new business. That's okay. Moving on to new business is, I will entertain a motion regarding the photography, filming, and recording policy.
I move we adopt the policy as proposed. Maybe amended later on.
Right.
So I move we adopt the policy.
I second the motion. Motion.
You're open for discussion.
Okay, so again, my first comment, I think it should be clear that this policy doesn't apply to meetings of the trustees.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't read it like that either.
Right, I didn't either, but it just maybe a sentence in here or something that says that it doesn't apply to meetings of the board of trustees of the library.
Could that be another rule? Under C, general rules? At the end, maybe? Number 11.
Sure.
And it could be something like photography, filming, or audio recording shall
This
be
policy.
permitted at library board meetings.
Or just this policy does not apply to meetings of the board of trustees.
That's not good.
My only concern with that would be, like with the equipment, we don't want people bringing in lighting and
Yeah.
large microphones and such to the board meetings either.
So I think it was Michael's suggestion to just do a number 11 and be specific about recording. That then would be better than just policy doesn't apply, because then we'd have equipment and all those other provisions still in there.
Right, so possibly something like number 11, that photographing, filming, and audio recording of library board of trustees meetings is permitted.
Mhm.
Simple.
So is there a motion to amend the draft policy as such?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor of amending the draft policy?
I,
Any opposed? So the draft policy has been amended to include C11, that would be photographing, filming, or audio recording of library board of trustees meetings is permitted. Is there any other discussion on the policy as amended?
I like it.
Yeah.
I read through it a couple of times. I think it covers what needed to be covered.
We can thank Randy for that one.
That's right.
Thanks, Randy.
I'll call for the question.
All right. So all in favor of adopting the photography, filming, and recording policy as amended?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? We have adopted the photography, filming, and recording policy. Is there any other new business to bring before the board?
I don't believe this is new business, but I would like to add to the other reports, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but I would like to have Lily included in reports or suggestions or any kind of communication.
And I agree with that. I'd like to see it there too, but Lily, if you don't have anything you want to say, it isn't like we want you to feel you have to prepare a report every month, but we really do want to hear from you and hear what you're thinking yourself and what you're hearing at school about what kids wish was happening with the library.
Yeah.
Do we need to do anything formal to make that under reports?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you have anything you want to say?
No, I'm good. I just don't want to like interrupt you guys.
Oh,
or
no,
anything.
no, you're a part of the board. We want to hear from you. This is important. That's why you're here, because we want to hear from you.
I just want to point out next meeting, because of the Mark Cameron Foundation events, so we're shifting it to Tuesday, April 25th. So it's not going to be the fourth Wednesday of the month, it's going to be the fourth Tuesday. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
this-
and it says here that we're meeting, our library board meetings on Tuesday, or the Cameron thing is on.
Oh,
Tuesday?
that's the library board meeting. So we remember Mark Cameron, busy
Yeah,
as he
right.
was only available on a Wednesday.
Okay.
So we
So-
you kindly agreed to shift the board meeting.
Right. So he's not on Tuesday.
No,
He's
you are.
still on the 26th. I got it backwards. Okay, I've got it fixed. Scribble, scribble. Okay.
And you
Thank you.
can still come on Wednesday.
Yeah.
and Join us.
Yeah.
If there's no further business to be brought before the board, I adjourn our Library Board of Trustees meeting, and our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 25th at 4 p.m. in the same location.
That was the shortest meeting we've
Yeah.
had for a long time. Kind of.
Thank you, Randy.
What we forget or
Bye,
something.
Faye.
Thank you very much, Randy.
Yes.
Thanks, Randy.